Agenda item number 16.
Item number 16, resolve support of Lewiston's diverse community and condemning white supremacy. Requested action to approve the resolve support of Lewiston's diverse community and condemning white supremacy.
So moved.
Councillor Jack.
Second.
Councillor Jelena, seconded by Councillor Pease. And yes, I'd like to start things off where, yeah, I was concerned that we were visited by a group, and yeah, I received a lot of comments from fielded a lot of concerns from residents, and I was transparent when I talked with them, and in my quote to the paper, we do not tolerate white supremacy here, and I wanted to send the city government to send a strong message to these groups that they are not welcome here, and just in support of our diverse community, something that clearly states that message. Discussion. Councillor Harriman.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm fully in support of this as well. I was pretty disgusted that this group came here, and they appear to have come. They appear to not be local. They came here from out of state. They could have stopped at many places along the way. Portland also has a pretty large Somali population, which is one group they specifically called out. Yet they came up here, and I think that's for a reason. I think they knew that they would find more friendly faces up here. So I fully support this resolve. Thank you.
Councillor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this will surprise some, but I am in almost complete agreement with you on this. However, I don't think it goes far enough, and I would move to amend this by substitution to include other language. Now, did we have copies prepared for everybody?
I thought you circulated that.
I did at the meeting this morning. I thought they were going to be prepared and presented tonight.
Do you have yours to read? I'm sorry. I have a copy.
This is essentially the same thing that I did put out as a forewarning to the council, but this is in final form. I can read it into the record if you'd like. Resolve October 18th, 2022, a resolution in support of Lewiston's diverse community, condemning white supremacy and all forms of hate, division, and violence. Whereas the city of Lewiston is proud of its diversity and will not tolerate people or groups who seek to threaten our diverse community or any part or portion of said community. And whereas the city of Lewiston is a city founded in part by many immigrants who have defined the greatness of our city for well over 200 years. And whereas the city of Lewiston's immigrant population continues to provide significant cultural and economic opportunities for our entire community. And whereas the city of Lewiston, the second most diverse city in Maine, is strengthened by the cultural diversity of our residents. And whereas the City Council rejects white supremacy, condemns white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups, and all others who seek to spread hatred, dehumanize our residents, and intimidate and threaten our community. And whereas threats, intimidation, and violence, no matter by whom committed, constitute illegal acts which should be viewed by all as not only illegal, but also as reprehensible and totally unacceptable in a civilized society. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lewiston that we will always stand in solidarity with anyone targeted by any group or person's presence, and reaffirm that our community is a place that welcomes all and is strengthened by diversity and respect for law and order. Furthermore, we stand resolutely against all resident or non-resident, no matter what their background or affiliation might be, who threaten harm or propagate violence or disorder against any member of our community at large.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
So we now have. So we have a motion, and it's been seconded, and now discussion on this motion. My concern is that this really waters down the original motion, and I do not support it at all. Councillor Herman?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anyone should have a problem with calling out Nazis. That's the specific action that happened, the specific group who was here, and I don't see any reason to water this down. any city council would just condemn violence in general. I think most any person would. Not every city council will condemn white supremacy and Nazis, and that's the difference here. Thanks.
Councilor Jelinek.
Thank you. I thank you too, Councilor Clement, for what you brought forward, and I'm generally amenable to, amendments. Recently we did that with a resolve that you brought forward, Councilor Scott. In this case, while I appreciate the language that's been put forth here, and I certainly would support something like this separately, I think the intent of the initial resolve was to respond very specifically to something that happened in our city on October 4th. And I'd like to use an analogy just to sort of help explain where I'm coming from. If I had an employee that came to work late to work, I would go to that specific employee and I'd call her out on that. I wouldn't go to my staff at large and say that behavior was not okay, it's not going to be tolerated. Now, I might later on in a meeting talk about that behavior not being tolerable and that sort of thing, but if I had an issue with an employee that came to work late, I would go to that employee. This resolve is a bit like that. The initial resolve to me is in direct response to approximately 20 people coming to our city who frankly, have a history of being in Maine and doing this sort of thing. And I think that needs to be called out very specifically. Again, I appreciate the language that was put forth in the amended resolve, and I wouldn't mind that separately, perhaps, but I feel very strongly about supporting the initial resolve that was put out. Thank you.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to agree with Councilor Jelinek on this particular issue. I, too, did not disagree with what Councilor Clement had written. But I will say that it was immediately after that I myself made a social media post and said, no matter what, this is not free speech, this is hate speech. I will not stand by it. I don't condone it in my community. And I'll be honest with you, having a conversation with my son, I would condone this if he was called out for something. I would stand firm to condone this against him being called anything. And upon looking at it further, looking closely at what had happened, honestly, I wish we didn't have to talk about it, because I fear a little bit that this gives them the attention that they want when they come here. But that being said, they came here, they held a specific sign, they walked down a specific street. There was an intention there, and that intention was not to express their free speech. That intention was to cause hate and fear. And so I will have to agree that I would be willing to look at the other wordage in the future, but I think that we need to stick exactly with what is said in this and make one particular statement here. Thank you.
Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I disagree with the position that this waters down anything. If anything, it reinforces and augments what is being said. What has happened in our city to date this year, I may not have the numbers exactly correct now. I believe it's 6 shootings. We've had a couple of robberies involving beatings. Within the last 36 hours, we had a stabbing. Probably all of this stuff revolves around illicit pharmaceuticals, but nevertheless, it's happening. It's violence. It needs to be addressed, and we need to come out strongly in favor of it. This does not water down anything. If anything, it picks up what you said and pushes it further. And I, for one, am in support of this, and I just don't see us dividing it. I think we need to come out as a body strongly against all forms of hate, violence, intimidation. Thank you.
At this point, we'll go to public comment on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Luke Jensen, Sullivan Ave, Ward 5. I wrote some notes about the original resolution that was presented. I was not aware. And as a member of the public, if something's going to be presented, if you know ahead of time, it really should be given to the public ahead of time, too, so we can be prepared for it. I don't remember most of what was said, honestly. It did feel a bit watered down, comparing like all crime to all crime or something along those lines. I felt that the original resolution didn't go far enough. It didn't actually call out what actually happened or say that something even happened. It was just a blanket, we don't support white supremacists. Easiest thing in the world to do. I think the superintendent had the perfect tone. He didn't go into the details of who was attacked, he didn't call them out, but he mentioned that a group in his community was attacked and we need to support them. I think Jake Langlis hit the note, just absolutely nailed it. I'd like to see something more like a mayoral proclamation rather than a political science robotic, whereas list, I don't know, it just doesn't have the same feel for me. Jake Langlis really nailed it. And just looking at the second whereas in the original resolution, I was going to say, I'll speak on the original and what was presented there, but the second whereas, it mentions the city was founded by immigrants who have defined greatness of our city for over 200 years. According to the city's own website, it wasn't necessarily founded by immigrants, even though immigrants have played a pretty important role in the city. The Pajepscot purchase, a lot of residents from Massachusetts kind of making their way up north. So it should be edited a little bit for accuracy, but I would definitely support the original resolution over the new one. In fact, I'd add to it to actually specifically mention what kind of happened, at least that a group was attacked in the city. So yeah, the watered down one, I really don't see the point of that. As a member of the public, I'd like to be able to actually look at that ahead of time. I mean, this came out, the agenda, Thursday, Friday. You guys had how many days to let the public know this stuff? When you add things at the last minute, and we're not prepared for it, it really destroys trust. And you guys already know that I, am not the most trustful of you guys since you broke those freedom of access laws. And so, there's not a whole lot of trust right there right now. So, again, I had some notes for the original resolution. I'm a little bit all over the place right now because I'm kind of having both of them in my mind right now. Stick with the original one, edit it a bit for accuracy, historical accuracy, and probably put a mention of, that a group was attacked and that's why we're doing this, so that group knows that the city government stands with that group and all people in the city. That's probably what I would do. But again, you don't really need to have a city council resolution. You guys can just do a mayoral proclamation. The mayor speaks for the people of the city. He's elected citywide. He can do it, and he can probably write it in a nicer way than, the robotic political science talk. But again, if something like this was on the agenda on Friday, and this is being presented at the last minute, and there are a lot of questions about it, it just raises more questions about the agenda process, and that it looks sloppy and it makes us all look bad.
My name's Melissa Dunn. I reside at 254 Blake Street in Lewiston. I'm here today because I want to express that Lewiston has a long-standing history with extremism, and this cannot be pushed to the wayside. I appreciate a public statement, but I need one that's not so dismissive to what's actually happening in our community. They are here, they are local. There is correspondence of the city and PD being informed in 2020, even a strategic conditioning and recruitment of people based on a lot of false ideologies and misinformation, greatly putting communities at risk. There are people on this panel right now that sell Nazi contraband. I ended up canvassing downtown Lewiston and speaking to many different people, organizations, businesses, about the demonstration that was held, and I knew immediately they didn't get a permit from the city because they were within the restricted distance from City Hall. When I made my way to City Hall, I started talking about the assembly with the person that processes the applications and another staff member. And Brian O'Malley came around the corner on the other side of the wall to disrupt me. He acknowledged that he knew about the assembly, but the person
Excuse me, I'm sorry, we can't be talking about staff. If you have a specific complaint, you can bring it to our city administrator.
What is significant is that they choose to come out from the Park Street, Spruce Street side. It tells me that their vehicles were likely in a position where they could exit freely, that they were not parked in parking garages, and virtually undetected despite their clothing, with their uniform, with the black t-shirt, brown khaki pants, and Roman numeral 3 on the sleeve, identifying them as 3%ers under the guise for being for the Second Amendment, but it's extremism. And it was a statement about brazen. It was their unearned privilege to come out where the police station was. Now, the police have proven to be unresponsive to crimes that occur from people that exhibit supremacy or have proximity to supremacy because they self-identify. They even have denied that supremacy has ever been a problem in Lewiston and that we've ever had an issue. Despite our history and despite flyer drops, they acknowledge that they're not knowledgeable enough about supremacy. The reality is the police will not do a thing until crimes are committed, so it leaves the issue of dismantling radicalization on us. We need white allyship on the front lines, and we need law enforcement that's going to take reports of crimes that have happened to people without using abusive tactics like countering. We need avenues for families to nip radicalization, address violence in their homes, and have alternatives for justice other than the police. But white allyship cannot be making decisions for the impacted people that are the targets of extremists. And we're talking about Black and Indigenous people, trans people, immigrants here. Impacted people must lead the work. Thank you.
Elizabeth Eames, 133 Lisbon Street. I would just like to urge the council to take the original proclamation and not the very watered down version. I don't understand what the fear is. Why are you scared to call out white supremacy? It's unclear to me what this amendment achieves other than to displace attention from white supremacy to crime, which is not the same thing at all.
Back to the council. Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, for one, as a Lewiston City Councilor, got involved because I heard councilors in the last time not protect our police department and let another councilor malign the police department. I will not sit here and allow anybody to malign one of the best departments in the state of Maine. They're nationally certified, nationally accepted. They can have their opinions all they want. The fact of the matter is Lewiston Police Department is one of the best police departments in the state. They do not ignore people. They do not allow crimes to go without being investigated. They're a fantastic department. I have no problem with either version. I have no problem denouncing white supremacy. I didn't think that was the second version was watered down at all. I thought it just added. I'm against violence, period, from all forms. We have people that are coming to our community that are committing some very heinous crimes. And this might have been an opportunity to I don't want to say bulk them together, but just to recognize some of the issues that are going on and say we are definitely against it. We can have a resolution every council meeting for this is going to be white supremacists, and then we can have 15 more the next week. Just if it makes it easier, just to recognize each one. I did not think it watered down. I have no problem voting in favor of denouncing white supremacy. None whatsoever. I agree 100%. I do take offense, and I will not be quiet when somebody maligns the Lewiston Police Department. Do we make mistakes? Sure. Does the police department make mistakes? Sure. But they're one of the best damn departments that we have in the state, and I will not allow that to go unsaid.
Second that.
Further comments about the motion on the table? Councilor Shalina.
I just want to, maybe I wasn't clear. I didn't use the term watered down. I used the term sort of like generalizing or condemning violence versus a resolve that I think was very specific to an incident that needs to be named and called out. And that's why I was using the analogy about the employee that shows up late to work and how that person needs to be addressed as opposed to a bigger group. It doesn't mean that bigger group or the language in Councilor Clement's amended resolve isn't important. I just feel like this is a very specific thing that needs to be called out. And so I appreciate the work that went into that resolve. I also appreciate, the work that Councilor Clement did. And I think that, this is an important issue, and if it means that there's future resolves that come out, then that's fine. But I just was trying to communicate, not that it was watered down, but that it was a more global thing, and I felt like the intent of the initial resolve was really to look at what happened in our city on October 4th. So I don't know if I made that clear.
Further comments? Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
Please call the vote.
Sure, and so just for clarification, the motion before you is to substitute the newer resolve with the one that is there. So that will be one vote for the amendment to agree to replace it, and then would we have a second vote on the main motion, which would be to adopt the resolve. So just for clarification.
Thank you.
So Counselor from Ward 5.
Sorry, one second. Did you have a clarifying question?
Madam Clerk, we're voting to accept the amended resolve.
Right, so basically you're just agreeing to substitute the wording for the newer resolve for the original one. That would be the first vote, and then the second vote would be to adopt it. So Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to 3. And now the main motion, which is before you, Mr. Mayor, is to adopt the resolve that we just substituted with it. And you're welcome for discussion, or we can go to vote, whatever you like.
Further discussion by the council? Yeah, so I stand by what I said. I think this is a really watered down, when we start adding things to it, it gives Nazis a pass. And we're really talking about ideology here. And so, I would encourage the council to vote this substituted resolution down. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
No.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to 3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we are up to reports and updates.
Yes, we are.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. We had a school committee meeting last evening. We had